Peter yabuuzizza lwaki abantu bakola bye bakola era lwaki tebakola bye batakola.
Philosophy nga muntu.
Peter si bwe yabuuzizza.
Awo ng'abuuza ki exactly?
Yabadde mu buufu bw'akali ka vidiyo k'obufumbo ke twalabye. Simanyi oba eno yajja kweyogerera.
Wangi ntuuse bakama bange. Ngomyewo taata.
Ekibuuzo kyo kibuuza ki ssebo?
Nti okusinziira ku kye nalabye mu kavidiyo ako nabuuza ne ŋŋamba lwaki abantu tukola bye tukola. Kugamba nsonga ki ez'enkizo ezitawoneka ezituleetera okukola bye tukola n'obutakola bye tutakola. Nti kugamba nembeera ku mukutu nembeera ku mpewo omukyala n'akola statement bw'etyo nti yali tayagala nko basajja bampi naye yakubira mukwano gwe nga mukwano gwe yalina okusalawo nga n'amubuuza opinion nga mukwano gwe bw'agamba nti omusajja mumpi nga tagenda mu maaso naye. N'omusajja omukwano gwe n'alyoka amugamba nedda bannaawe omusajja oyo si mumpi. Kakati omukazi akyogerera ku mpewo akyogera lunye nti tayagalanga ku basajja bampi naye mufumbo gy'oli ate oli mumpi era n'osigala ng'owasizza oyo. Nalowooza lwaki tukola bye tukola lwaki tetukola bye tukola. Kugamba mbuuza muganda wange oyo mu birowoozo byange ng'omaze okutegeera how patronizing oba nfe abalabye obubi how patronizing the woman is. But n'olyoka insisting omukazi n'amala n'agamba nti nze sisobola kufumbirwa ng'ewaffe tonnazimba mizigo gya mmange olina kusooka kuzimba mizigo esatu egya mmange olyoka ompa n'osigala ng'okola eki n'ogenda mu maaso n'okola kye bayita okuwasa. Ogamba nga ekibuuzo kyange mbadde just nkozesa ka video ngamba bintu ki ebisobola ebitusazisaawo nga bwe tusalawo oba ne tutasalawo nga bwe tutasalawo. Nti kino kyo kyasimba kimenya ebirala byonna. Nyinza okuba nga ndowooza bulungi nga I'm a good thinker naye ng'ensonga eno bw'etuuka bw'eti okulowooza kwange kusannyalala kiri ne kiteekinga precedence. Ssebo kyekibadde ekibuuzo kyange ssebo.
Tulwaniriza nnyo Mukama waffe Yesu Kristo eno in Truth and Spirit World of Worship Fellowship. Leero lunaku lwa Monday. Buli lwa Monday tubeera ne topical discussion. Olwaleero tugenda kukola mu Luganda. Ekibuuzo kyaffe ekisoose kyekyo kibuuziddwa omu ku bakama baffe wano ku fellowship, Professor Serubidde abuuza lwaki abantu bakola bye bakola. Waliwo ebintu eby'essimba ebitakyukakyuka nga bye biviirako abantu okukola bye bakola n'obutakola ebyo bye batakola. Kyekibuuzo kya mwami.
Kyekyo kyennyini. Neyanza moderator kyekyo kyennyini.
Okay, Lugoloobi kyekiseera kyo ssebo. Mwami Lugoloobi.
Ssebo si kyembadde naye kyembuuza nti nsobola okubuuza n'ekyali ne kiteekebwa wali ebbali ne kirinda kino kiggweyo oba nina kulinda kino kiddibwemu ne mbuuza.
Omwoyo w'ennaku zino abeera ku bantu ayina engeri gy'abavaako kitali nga wa Bayibuli. Ssebo kibuuze nakyo tukitwale.
Nina ekintu nkirowoozezzaako kati nakirowoozaako dda naye kinkomeddewo. Nsaba abakenkufu mu by'okutegeera n'okunoonyereza Katonda mu nnyambeko. Lwaki Katonda mu kweyanjulira ensi yasalawo kuyita mu Bayudaaya oba mu Bayisirayiri? Mulina kye muyinza otuyambako lwaki yalonda balala? Is there anything waliwo mu byawandiikibwa ekiyinza okubikkula lwaki alonda bo? N'ekirala lwaki era Katonda bw'asalawo okujja ku nsi wali wayise emyaka 10,000 emyaka bukyanga abantu babeera ku nsi lwaki yasalawo kujja mu budde bwe yajjiramu Katonda Emmanuel Yesu Kristo ng'ajja ku nsi lwaki teyajja mu bbanga lyaffe lino lwaki teyajja before lwaki teyajja myaka nga 2,000 lwaki teyajja 2000 BC or 1000 BC or 3000 BC or 4000 BC lwaki yalonda obwo obudde waliwo kye bayita fullness of time bw'osoma Bible eyogera ku fullness of time what was full about that time Katonda okujja byebuuzo ebibadde bintawo bizze mabega nga neebuunya lwaki yajja mu budde obwo lwaki yalonda okwebikulira Bayisirayiri.
So tweyanze Tutangazo woli owulira
Jerestede
ekyo ekisembyeyo kibadde kibuuzo kyo oyagala kitandikiramu
musibye mutya baganda bange
nze gye ndi mpolampola
wiiki etandise etya
tusibye bulungi Reverend tusibye bulungi sebo
weewaawo kaakati ekyo kibuuzo kirungi nnyo era abadde akibuuza nga ndi mu kirowoozaako kigwanidde okubuuzibwa ensonga esookera ddala lwaki yalonda Bayudaaya Mukama talondanga ku Bayudaaya Mukama yayita Ibulayimu n'amuwulira n'amugondera Abayudaaya bazzukulu ba Ibulayimu obalaba endagaano kwe baali bayimiridde si yaabwe Mukama takolangako ndagaano nabwe yakola ndagaano ne Ibulayimu. So it is Abraham who he called and he answered. So the one telling us the story most likely addayo to that point when God calls Abraham. Kyalibadde nti kisoboka okuba nga balala baayitibwa ne bataddamu naye at least eyo story eri highlighted nti yeye yayitibwa n'addamu but also jjukira nti before that Mukama yali yayitadde abantu ng'ayita mu Nuuwa ne bagaana okitegeera so Ibulayimu okumuwuliriza n'amugondera n'akola kye yamugamba is the highlight of it all. So Mukama yayita Ibulayimu si Bayudaaya Abayudaaya bazzukulu ba Ibulayimu era mubo Mukama mwe yatuukiriza ekisuubizo kye eri ani eri Ibulayimu kaakati byonna byatuukiriza ng'ogamba in the fullness of time mu biseera ebituufu usually tugamba nti ekintu kituufu tuba tulina reference point okusinziira ku ki okusinziira ku ani ebiseera ebituufu okusinziira ku ani ebisobola kuba nga bisinziira kufa abantu tetulina biseera bituufu abantu ebiseera buli omu alina ebibye byayagala nina gurupu gye ndi part of tulina meeting ku Lwomukaaga tuganya okukkaanya essaawa entuufu buli omu alina essaawa ezimukolera abafumbo waliwo omufumbo alowooza tusobola omiitinga ku ssaawa emu ku Saturday singo omwambi etajja ku miitinga ku emu bisingo kati omufumbo n'amubuuza gwe ki ekigaano ve waka ku ssaawa emu ku Saturday because abantu ffe tulina biseera bituufu buli omu ali biased Mukama yekka atali biased yasobola okuba n'ebiseera ebituufu so when we talk about mu biseera ebituufu at the right time Galatians chapter 4 I think Paul is talking about at the right time Christ came God gave us his son and his timing so buli kimu ffe time tugibala linearly nti buli ensi lwe yeetooloola ne wayitawo essaawa 24 olunaku lumu luwedde nemala ne yeetooloola emirundi 365 ezo nga zifuuka omwaka mulamba so bwetyo twala obudde naye Mukama tabubala bw'atyo yadde nga yabukola bubiri bwe butyo yabukola ku lwaffe kubaffe obulamu obwaffe yabukola nga busobola okutambula bwe butyo bwetebeza yatukola mu kifaananyi kye naye yeebaka ffe yatukola n'atuwanga emibiri egyaffe girina obudde bwe gisobola okubeera active, super active, ate gikoowa nga gyetaaga okuwummula ne gifuna ku maanyi ne giddamu ne gikola, naye ye talina mibiri ng'egyaffe. So n'engeri gy'abalamu obudde teri ku ngeri gye tutegeeramu obudde. So bw'agamba mu kiseera ekituufu, ekiseera ye kye yagera ekituufu ku ye. Kaakati bwe tugezaako ekiseera kye yagera tetusobola kiwakanya nti si kituufu, kuba ate tetulina ekiseera kirala kye tusobola kigeraageranyaako, because you can only argue that something is not true if you have another, or true or right, wrong or right, whatever. You cannot argue that if you don't have another to refer to or compare it to. So mu kiseera ekituufu or at the right time is a reference to God's timing. Okitegeera nti ekiseera kya Katonda kiba kituufu. Ekiseera kya Katonda nze okuzaalibwa kyali kituufu. Saazaalibwa mu biseera bya Martin Luther, yadde abasajja bonna baagala nnyo reformers, naali agadde nnyo okubeera mu time y'emu nabo. Okitegeera. Saazaalibwa mu biseera ki? Saazaalibwa mu 2000. I'm a millennial. I'm not a Gen Z, I'm not an Alpha, I'm not a baby boomer, I'm a millennial. So Mukama yalina obuyinza ku biseera ebituufu. N'okufa bwe kutyo. So yes, one, Mukama tayitanga ku Bayudaaya, yayita Ibrahimu n'amuddamu n'amusuubiza ku ekyo ky'akoze agenda mufuula ekitalabibwangako ku nsi kuno, agenda mufuulamu ensi, eggwanga eritumufu ery'amaanyi, asaasaane okubuna ensi yonna. Kati ate ekyo tekyatuukira mu Bayisirayiri, kyatuukirira mu Yesu Kristo. Okitegeera, omwajjira mu lunyiriri lwa Ibulayimu okuva, era bw'ogenda mu Matayo baba boogera ku lunyiriri lwa Ibulayimu, baviira ddala ku manya lunyiriri lwa Yesu, ti Yesu avaawa, ne baddayo the genealogy of Jesus, baddayo mabega. Luka addirayo ddala ku Adamu, Luka alabika addirayo ddala ku Adamu. Okitegeera, paka bwatuka ku Yesu, olunyiriri lwa Yesu luviira ddala eyo yonna. Kakati Abayudaaya bwe bali wakati awo, naye nga bo babeeramu kubanga Abrahamu mwali. Ngenda kukomaawo. So ye Mukama agamba nti
ese bw'obadde omaliriza
nongamba Mukama bw'agera obudde obubwe kiba kivudde mu mikono egyaffe, biba tebikyali bya ssaawa 6 mwezi bwe guti biseera bwe biti. Okitegeera, era bwe twala tubirowoozaako nnyo, otunula ne mu Bayibuli mwennyini alina engeri gye yagambanga Abayisirayiri kati abo ng'amaze obbayita kati nga yensi gy'akoleramu okweyoleka kwe, ng'ababuulira n'abagamba mu kiseera bwe kiti mujja kukola ekintu bwe kiti. Si be baamuteesezanga ne bamugamba, naye Mukama twali agadde okukola ekintu bwe kiti mu kiseera bwe kiti. Ye yagambanga nti mu kiseera bwe kiti mujja kukola ekintu bwe kiti ku lw'ensonga bweti ne bweti, mu budde bwe buti, nga yalagira, nga yasalawo. Si bo, kubanga abantu bo tebasobola kuba na magezi ago gagera budde butuufu, ate tebalina na buyinza ku budde. Tetulina buyinza ku budde. Ffe tuzuuka buzuukusi ne tuzunga, obudde ne butugendako.
Sebo tweyanzeege, weebale nnyo, weebalire ddala. Mwami Lugoloobi, kye kitundu ekisooka eky'okuddamu ekibuuzo kyekyo. Waliwo omulala ayagala okwongerako ku kibuuzo ekyo? Ivan Taiwan, tusanyusa okukulaba. Olwaleero twogera
kivudde ky'okukozesa Oluganda leero bannaye, kiki kye mutwagaza?
Mwagala tuluveemu?
Just mbuuza bubuuza naye mama gwe tompulidde nga ntoba nalwo.
Ate bulijjo gw'oluleeta, bulijjo tubeera mu Luzungu n'otutwala mu Luganda lwa mpaka. Ne tulowooza nti omukulu engeri gy'aliwo ng'ate Muganda, leka tukozese olulimi lwe, ate tugenza okuwulira ng'oluvaamu. Okay. Waliwo omuntu omulala ayagala okwongerako? Any other person who would like to contribute to that question? The question of Francis says, what does it mean when the Bible says in the fullness of time? That's the first question. Then the other question also, again from Francis, is why did God choose to appear in Israel? Was that the question? To use Israel, or why did he choose Israelites and not any other person? So Reverend was here responding to him, telling him that he actually did not choose Israelites. He chose Abraham, and Abraham was actually not an Israelite, though the Israelites are actually grandchildren to Abraham. But Abraham himself was not an Israelite. And I think that actually confuses many people. There are, I think, 3 words in the Bible: the Jews, the Israelites, and the Hebrews, right? And now that it is Monday, we need also to clarify that so that we get to understand what Reverend means when he says that God did not choose Israelites, but he chose Abraham, though the Israelites are grandchildren to Abraham. And I think it matters that we also explain what those 3 actually mean and stand for. Yes, Reverend.
No, I saying anti katola wozze mu luzungu nekibanga kyawukanamu nnyo nti Israelites, Jews and Hebrews. Naye wogamba Abayudaaya, Abayisirayiri. Israel is the new name given to Jacob. At that point, I think it's Bethel. Is it Bethel? Where he fought with an angel, he wrestled with an angel. And yes, he wrestled with an angel, of course, thinking he's wrestling with God. Anyway, so I'm saying that, so you see that even when they're called Israel, God keeps referring to Jacob as Jacob throughout the Old Testament. Oftentimes he refers to him as Jacob, and then Israel, and then Judah. So simultaneously, and synonymously, there is a usage of that to mean the same.
Reverend, we want our ordinary believer to understand whether there's a difference between Jews, Hebrews, and Israelites.
And that's what I was saying. Tigakati, the Hebrews, babera bazukuru ba Ibrahim. Israel is a nation. And the difference is, how can I put it? The difference is katukoleba nti Abaganda ne mu Buganda nti bw'oyogera ku Baganda oyogera ku waliwo osobola okuba ng'otegeeza Abaganda abazzukulu ba Kintu oba Abaganda ababeera mu Buganda. There is a huge difference.
Kale wewe
naye ojja kunyamba okize kitereeze
kale njagezaako kubanga wano waliwo omukono gwe tulina wano. Professor Serwidde, we already captured your question, but we are still struggling with the questions from Francis Lugorobi, and your hand is up. Why?
I would like to add to the difference among the Hebrews, Israelites, Jews, and then there is another term used, Armenian. When talking of there is that oath, that kind of genealogy, that kind of kuranya, that the Israelites say, my father was an Akkadian or something like an Armenian. How different are they?
Ivan Taiwan says, I always thought that Hebrews are descendants of David, like part of Israel shared in Hebron. Okay, you see. Now this is why we actually at this fellowship, this is why we have these kinds of sessions of asking these questions, so that people do not get things twisted here, and we make sure that we understand. I would like to pick it up from where Reverend actually left it, and I will try and rectify the example that he had actually launched, which I think is very important for anyone who is in Buganda to understand the difference between Jews, Israelites, and Hebrews. Now, Hebrews were a group of nomads and nomadic traders. Initially, they were called the Habirus. Habirus. Okay? Israelites are the people who come from the 12 sons of Jacob, Israelites. Jews is a clan or one of the children of Jacob. They come from Judah. Jews. So if you are in Buganda, and if you are in Muganda, you will appreciate it this way. Let me see whether I will get it there. Buganda is a collection of many people. Let's launch it from that point. Now, they are in Buganda, they are Baganda. Maybe I would say indigenous Baganda. Those are the Baganda. Francis, bali Abaganda abatali wawa abatali gere babeera ki? Babeera Baganda just.
baba Baganda oba bannansangwa.
So
Ebika
Israelites.
ebitaano. Omuli
So,
Effumbe, Enkima n'ebirala.
So Israelites are Nansangwa. Israelites are Nansangwa. Now, Jews are almost the Barangira. Why? Because they dominated the monarchy, and after the divided kingdom, they were the last kingdom standing. They fell last and went into exile last. And through them, and through their cities like Bethlehem, the anticipated Messiah that Christianity considered Jesus Christ of Nazareth came through them. So Jews are the Barangira. Now, if you are to understand it from that angle. Now, the Armenian that you are talking about, Professor Seruvide, is a traveler. I need to check my notes again. Naye omutambuze. So Abraham was under the category of the Habirus. But Abraham himself, he was an Akkadian. So he was an Akkadian Habiru. That's why they call him an Armenian. From whom, okay, the Israelites come from, because he's the grandfather of the Israelites, as Reverend was actually trying to explain to us here. So the question, why are we actually bringing in these things here and these details here? Because the question of Francis was, why did God choose Israelites? And Reverend Ebley responded to him by telling him that God did not choose Israelites. He didn't. He actually chose Abraham, who had nothing to do with Israelites, because by then there was no Israelite at all. And like Reverend put it, Israelites are not a tribe, are not what, but they are a nation whose origin is from the 12 sons of Jacob. The name Israel itself, Reverend has told us how it came about, and he has given us that verse in the book of Genesis. When God changed the name of a thief and gave him a brand new name. You are no longer now a thief. You are now a new person. Now that you have wrestled me, I have taken theft out of you, and I have now rebranded you. You are going to be the father of nations. So that is the simplistic explanation of the difference between Hebrews.
Kati awe nkugambira nti bw'oba olina omuze oli mubbi oli mwenzi oyagala gukuveemu Rwanda ne Mukama osoli nga mukwata ekigwo kola nga Jacobo bwe yakola. Sorry.
Jethro, can you please keep your reverend in charge? So And jokes aside, sometimes you need God to come and wrestle, okay, that habit out of you. And those of us who have those habits should not actually let God go until we are blessed with that transformation and conversion. So basically, what we are saying is that God never chose Israelites. Though today we have a movement of Zionism, etc., pray for Israel, because if you pray for Israel and if you bless Israel, you also be blessed. That's Zionism running here. And our salvation will be through Israel. Our salvation will be through Israel. That kind of Zionism also has created a number of problems to unsuspecting believers. And now you see people having flags of Israel on their cars, on their working desks. They go to Israel, come back with scarves and shawls, blessed. They greet in Hebrew, shalom, 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 shalom. Because the Zionism teaches them that God can only bless them through Israel. So they give Israel a special place in Christianity. But I would like to take this opportunity to inform all of you who are under Zionism that Israelites, actually, majority Israelites, are not even Christians. They do not even believe Jesus of faith. Neither do they even believe him as the anticipated Messiah. Judaism still is waiting for that Messiah who has not actually showed up. So while you are jumping up and down with Israel, you need to understand that Israel is just taking advantage of making money in tourism, but they have no business whatsoever with your Jesus Christ.
Moderator, waliwo n'Abannayuganda abeeyita abazzukulu ba Abraham. Era juzi, I'm telling you the truth. Juzi,
I know.
I was addressing a mother ng'ali mu kuyomba ne muwala we, na muwala we who now identifies as a granddaughter of Abraham. Seriously, everything she thinks, reads, kusomera omwana aganye n'okusoma ebirimu amagezi kubanga alowooza mu Yudaaya.
Oh dear.
Bangi si yekka, bangi nnyo. Nina ne muganda wange sebo yeeyita omuzzukulu wa Ibrahim, namugamba tolibeera. Owulidde? Anyway, ensonga yo nkulu nnyo gy'oggyeyo nayo.
Yes. So I think it is important that we be careful not to assume that the way we think about Jesus Christ, we as Christians, is the same way as Israelites or Jews think about Jesus Christ. No, not at all. Not at all. They have been consistent ever since they killed Jesus Christ of Nazareth. They have been consistent. They have never believed that he was the Messiah. Neither do they even believe that he's God. They still believe in their Yahweh, and they're still waiting for that combatant Messiah, not this weakling that died on the cross killed by the Romans. Okay? And they don't also believe in our version of the Bible. Okay? So theirs is a little bit different. So I thought that would be established before we move on. Now, Francis had also another question that Reverend addressed about the fullness of time. Any other person who wants to say something about the fullness of time?
Yeah, I would like to say something I've learned through my 10 years of study in truth and in spirit well of worship theologians. This is what I've learned, that the concept of time, as used in the discourse of the Bible, has been understood in mainly three ways. The first is understood as from one point to another point. That time means a move from one point to another point, or from one period to another. That is the period between two events as time. That is the first. The second, time as event. In other words, when event happens, time has happened. For example, in Isaiah chapter 6, it says, in the year King Hezekiah died, I saw the Lord. The speaker in that text is trying to communicate that time has been counted when the event of Hezekiah's death takes place or took place. Okay, that is another concept of time as Bible discourse presents it. And then the third is time to mean opportunity. Opportunity. For example, the Greek term kairos comes from the Greek mythology where we had an archer. Is it archer or archery? I think the sport is called archery. And the person who does that is called an archer, if I can remember very well. In other words, if you are in a war and you are in charge of shooting, kairos is that opportunity at the time when your enemy goes loose. It is at that time you need to strike. You know, at that point, time is not in seconds or in days or years or minutes or hours, but it is the opportunity you have. It is time to seize the opportunity because it has happened. It is that concept that Mr. Paul, our elder brother in Christ, borrows from the Greek mythology, and the English translators translate it as in the fullness of time. I think the better, a more communicative translation ought to have been when God seized the opportunity. God considered it it's high time. Good, that's the English. It was high time God saved or God manifested. It was the opportune time to strike. Now, Mr. Lugolobe, being an accountant and being a business person, he can now understand that there is an opportune time for you to display your products. That is the time. So that is the fullness. So at that point of our fullness, it is not in days, in years, in hours, or in months, and so on, which is quantitative, but the fullness of time is that qualitative time, and so on and so forth. Those are the three that I have understood, and that's what I can add to the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. You have actually contributed to our discussion. Reverend, your hand is up briefly.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter. That's exactly the thing about time. So for us, we understand it on the clock, and for God, it's not on the clock. And I'm meaning God here to say that God does not seize opportunity. That's the only point I want to disagree with you. God doesn't get opportunities. There's nothing like such for God. There's no window that opens for God to do nothing. He doesn't be there hoping that the window opens and he can utilize it, but rather he ordains the time. He set the time to do something. So that's why
he was using the example within his broad context of Kairos.
I totally agree with him, because I agree with him in the understanding of time. So I mean, when he talks about that, we even go back to Genesis chapter 1 when you talk about the days of creation. Are they 24-hour days? Are they 12-hour days? Are they days like so things of that nature? However, when be careful with the language of God seizing opportunity, because God does not need an opportunity to execute. He already said he is the one who set that time. Let's take it up in economics or in accounting, in stocks, stock exchanges. What are setting would never playing any good deals? Ne oba ne mu poker, mu gambling, whatever guy in charge of that thing. Now in this case, God is actually in charge of time. And therefore he does not seize opportunity that he's in charge of. You cannot seize an opportunity that he's in charge of. He is in charge of time. He actually knows when things are going to happen. For us, opportunity. And I'm not.
I've lost him. Am I alone? Reverend, I can't hear you.
I've also lost him.
Hello?
Reverend, your network is not good.
Moderator, can I come in here?
No, hold your guns because you will still interrupt. Reverend, if you can hear us, your network is squeaky and breaking. So could you refresh and then get back to us before I unleash others to come and participate? Okay. I would like to welcome Gracious, Ivan Taiwan, and Dr. Mukwana. Dr. Mukwana, how are you? Can you say hi?
I am all right. I'm all right, Chair. Thank you. How is everyone here?
Everyone here is thinking about the question that Francis asked about in what the meaning of the fullness of time, a phrase that is rampant in the New Testament. What does it mean? All right. So that's what we've been musing about here. Gracious, are you all right?
Yes, good, thank you.
That's all right. Taiwan, I saw your text. I hope you're all right. Good. Professor Serwide, that's why you come in.
Thank you, Pastor White, Mr. Moderator. I was using that word, I don't want to act defensive, but I wanted to clarify. I was using that in light of the one who asked. Because the one who asked, I just thought when I used that analogy, he would be in position to understand. Of course, God cannot seize an opportunity and so on. But, when God starts to participate in revelation to man or to humanity, I want to state it, and I beg to be corrected, that he gets delimited even when he's not limited. In other words, when God starts to do the activity of revelation within the context of a limited human being, whether he likes it or not, he has to delimit himself if he is to remain relevant and if he's to achieve his intention to communicate. So that is what. But we're not saying that God seizes opportunity, but in other words, God deemed it opportune at such a period that he should now manifest himself as a human being amongst us. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Good. Francis, what have you deducted so far? Gorobi, are you there?
I'm here, Pastor.
Yes, so far, what have you deducted from all that has been said?
From Tangazo to the last speaker, I've had my questions answered, of course, responded to ably, but there are a few things I don't know. Maybe you can help me with. When I was talking about God's timing, I wasn't talking about that humans could have a hand in determining the time of God coming to earth as God himself. But what I was seeking out more is whether in your study of scripture and understanding of God, whether there is a way we can deduce how God picked on that time of zero AD, was it 0 AD? Yeah, if there was anything like that, of 0 AD to come to earth. If in the study of scripture you can pinpoint that. And but on the first question of why God chose the Israelites to come to reveal himself to humanity, something which was very salient in the answer which Trutangazo gave was the fact that God didn't, of course, choose the way God chose Abraham. In his theory, Trutangazo tried to show us that maybe God called other people and they didn't turn up, and it's Abraham who answered yes to him. So I can logically try to understand why it's the descendants or some of the descendants of Abraham through whom God revealed himself to humankind. But on the second question, I just seek more clarity on whether there is somewhere in scripture where we can feed ourselves on understanding why 0 AD or why that exact time God came, or there is nowhere. We just have to rely on the fact that God knows the right time.
Okay, thank you very much. You have background noise, Gracious, so it is all right to switch off your microphone. Okay, because
Thank you.
that goes through. Good. Dr. Mukwana, I want to give you an assignment publicly because you're a theologian. I need you to go and think about if the couple of Adam and Eve is representative to the entire humanity as far as creation is concerned. That is, if you believe that God created all races at once in their places of habitat. So if you believe in that whole idea that Chinese were created at the same time when Africans were created, and you don't believe that they all came from that couple of Adam and Eve, that is as far as creation is concerned. Don't you think that just as creation was concurrent globally, don't you think that revelation also was concurrent globally? By the time God was visiting Abraham, he had visited another Abraham somewhere. And the kind of knowledge that Abraham had about God then was the very kind of knowledge that X somewhere in Africa or somewhere in Asia had about God then. And therefore, what we have in the Bible as far as Abraham is concerned is just a chronology that leads us to the Jesus of Nazareth as a representative of the ultimate revelation of God. I think these things, when you go back as a theologian and muse about them and then come back and share with us, they will actually edify the flock here. That is if, Dr. Mukwana, you have actually understood the assignment.
Yes, I have understood the assignment.
Brilliant. You can even start on it right now if you want. But do you want to say anything about the fullness of time or what?
Not now, for sure.
Okay, fine. Whatever is in your heart. Well, Trutangazo has dropped off, but I think, Brother Francis, the idea of the fullness of time communicates three things. The phrase, the fullness of time, communicates three things. And I think the pre-current speakers have actually communicated those three things. But for me, I'm a slow learner, so I would like simplifying things for fellow slow learners to understand the sophistication of the theologians like Reverend and the professors like Peter have put in their language. So when the New Testament talks about the fullness of time, all right, something that appears in Galatians chapter 4, verse 4 to 5, and also somewhere, I don't know whether Ephesians also talks about that. Ephesians chapter 1, I think, verse 9 to 10. You'll quote those verses and then refer to them. But that whole idea is representative of three things. Number one, divine sovereignty. And that is the big point that Reverend Tangazo actually wanted to establish. And that is why he was actually warning Professor Serowide not to tag God as an opportunist or one who needs an opportunity. So he wanted to first of all establish the idea of divine sovereignty, because when you ask a question, why did why was Jesus born in that time that he was born? Why? That answer cannot be answered by us, fellow human beings. It can only be answered by the one who was born that time, because it is him who decided to be born that time. You see, unlike Jesus, unlike most of us who never decided to be born, Jesus decided to be born. Why? Because he got incarnate. And I think that is what Ephesians chapter, no, Galatians actually.
Musumba, what have you said? Unlike
all of us who never decided to be born, God decided to be born. So the one who decided to be born actually decided even the ample time. So that is what the New Testament means when it says in the fullness of time. So he was
God
in
decided.
charge. Yes, he decided. He was in charge. It was his timing. So we don't know why. He knows the why, because he's the one who decided to be born then, right? So I think that divine sovereignty also is also very important. And I think to extend this discussion further to the school of Jethro, because I know Jethro is an apologist to the atheists and scientists. Those of you who are like Jethro, who keep debating these matters with logicians, that is Jethro and Rutembana. Rutembana and Jethro like debating these things of God with non-believers and pagans. There is the question of the why, of the when. Now, that question has not been ably answered and responded to by even the pagans and the scientists that actually challenge our belief in God. The question of the why, of the when. Okay? For example, why is the pulse of the heart, okay, beating at that rate in those seconds? Why? Why that? So the why of that when also is beyond science. And that is why we who defend the existence of God using the design argument, we defend that by saying that this can only be done by an intelligent being. So it has been determined and designed by this intelligent being. And those reasons as to why the heart is beating at that rate can actually be understood when you go and analyze the other organs in the anatomy of the human being, how they're operating against the beating of the heart and in that time frame. So the rationale can actually be deduced from analyzing those other body organs and cells, etc. But all that cannot be by chance. It can't be by accident. So this whole thing of divine sovereignty should be established as a defense of the existence of God in most debates like those that Rutembana and Jethro have in those circles. So that is the first reason. God decided to be born, therefore he was in charge of the time when he's going to be born. So that is the first communication of the phrase, of the New Testament phrase of in the fullness of time. It communicates divine sovereignty. God decided in that time. So the fullness of time was his time, not our time. That is the first thing that it communicates. The other thing it communicates is the purpose. The purpose and preparation. So he purposed the when. And what the fullness of time communicates in the context of purpose here is that the place, the people, the leadership there, the circumstances, then all those were part of the purpose. That is why later Paul will say that all things work for the good, okay, of God. So he placed himself in that opportune time. He didn't take opportunity. I know this will threaten Tangazo, because Tangazo is a God-fearer, and there are many God-fearers in these sessions. So the circumstances then were opportune circumstances for his birth. Okay? They were communicative circumstances. They were participatory circumstances. So they were purposed. They were purposed. And it is very important as believers who are listening and those of you who are attending this fellowship today, that we believers do not believe in luck. No, we believe in a blessing. We don't believe in chance and accidents. We believe in ordination because we are under charge. We are in the covenant with a living being that we have called God. So whatever happens is part of the purpose and the plan. All you need to do, whenever things happen to you, is to find out, to pay attention, to connect the dots, those that you can in your capacity, and draw a meaning out of the blessing and draw a meaning out of a problem. Just draw a meaning, get an understanding, grow in plenty, grow in luck, grow in pain, grow in prosperity and pleasure. Because everything here is purposed. It is the fullness of time. This is where this fullness of time actually helps us distance us from the pagan belief of fatalism, fate. We don't believe in fate. We believe in intentions. What has happened to you has been intentional. It has been planned. It is part of the plan. But do you know the plan? It is part of the purpose. But do you know the purpose? So that is what the phrase "in the fullness of time" communicates in its second aspect. Purpose, preparation, and plan. So it was all the circumstance, all the people, all the leaders, Romans being dominant on the Jews, etc., Greek and being the marketplace wage, the situations, the history then, as we read it today, was an opportune time. Okay, was an opportune time that God might be born in such a time. And Rutemban asked me as I leave. Rutembana has a question here, and I'm trying to find it. It says, okay, so when you get problems, that is God's plan. Okay. The language of the question and the structure of the question communicates that is it God therefore who causes these problems? Or are problems part of God's plan? No, problems are not part of God's plan. But problems, okay, but the plan of God and the purpose of God can still be fulfilled, okay, within the problems that happen to you. So there is always, that's why the Bible says that all things, and when it says that all things work for the good of those who believe in God, what the text is actually saying that whatever happens to you, good or bad, and I'd actually mentioned this earlier, whatever happens to you, good or bad, you as a believer in God, you should seek the plan and the purpose of God, okay? And you shouldn't look at problems as being sourced from your God. But because you are in a fallen world, whatever happens to you, God can use it for His will and for your betterment, if that is an English word, and for your success, So we do not believe that problems are part of God's plan, but we know that some problems have made us better people, and problems have made some people better because they have chosen not to be bitter, but to be better within those challenging circumstances and to learn something, one or two. We know that many others have been consumed by problems and actually become bitter and worse people. Yes, we know. But that is not something that we expect to happen with someone who believes in God, especially those of us who are not deists like you, Rutembana. Because you, Rutembana, you're a deist, you believe there is God who is not involved in our situations. But we are discussing, the creationists and who worship a living and uninvolved God, we believe that whatever happens to us, God is part of that, and His purpose and plan will actually come to pass. So we go through these challenging times believing and sticking to the plan and the purpose of God. And then eventually we get out of these problems better people. We are not consumed by circumstances, but we look at circumstances. We stand in the fire like the three Hebrew boys in Daniel chapter 3. When we are in that fiery furnace, we know that we are with this God. He is with us. We are not dumped into problems. God is not an absent landlord. He's part of the pleasure, and he's also as well part of the problems. And we are always seeking and sticking to the plan and the purpose of that of that God. So that was the second thing, and the third thing. Rutangazo, welcome. We are now far away. He's asking what Rutangazo has done. No, he just follow up. Now, the third thing that the fullness of time actually communicates is now the idea of time. Is the idea of time, and that is where Professor Serubide came in teaching us his Greek of kairos, etc. But in the New Testament, kairos is not only the Greek term for time, but there's also chronos, and of course chronos is this quantitative time, okay? Then kairos is this eventual time, time of event. Kairos is close to the Hebrew understanding of time, because the Hebrew understanding of time, there is no time unless there is an event. There is no time unless there is an event. That is when there is time. But the Greek understanding of time, which actually influences the Western understanding of time, the time that we run by even today, is that there is time whether there is an event or not. And that time with event or not is called chronos, where we get our whole thing of chronology from 7 to 6. Then we count again, or we go from 1 to 24 hours, the chronos time. There's that whole thing of chronos, and I think that is important. But the Greek word used in that phrase, the fullness of time, is not chronos, but it is kairos. And of course, Professor Serubide had given us that mythological bit of it, which I do not want to go into right now. I just want to focus on the whole idea of that kairos is about a critical and opportune or appointed time, which takes us back to Reverend Tangazo's initial presentation, divine sovereignty, which was our first point of what the fullness of time means. The time was appointed by who? By a sovereign God who decided to be born that very time. So kairos is all about that whole thing. And it is important also to understand that when we talk about the fullness of time, again, I have to remind you that we are not talking about fate or fatalism, because fatalism is the pagan way of looking at events in our lives. But our Christian way of looking at events and time in our Christian lifestyles and living is that there is a God who is involved in our affairs, and because he is sovereign over our lives, and yet we are in this covenant with him, kairos operates in two spheres. It operates under the divine sovereignty and the divine ordination. There are things God has purposed that they will happen at that opportune time by his divine sovereignty. But it's also important to understand that now that we are volitional beings that God is dealing with, God also uses kairos. In other words, he takes the opportune time to teach us a few things in our volitional state of understanding. What we mean that we are freedom of choice beings. So God takes advantage, okay? God takes advantage of our understanding to communicate and reveal himself better in most and appropriate opportune time, which we call kairos. So that is the fullness of time. That is the fullness of time. There are people who are not going to believe God, okay? Even when we communicate all the information and we read all the Bible to them and we give them all the evidence, and they won't believe God. They won't. Even when the evidence is presented to them. I normally give an example of my brother here, Rutembana, who argues that God is not involved. Let me give you an example. Let me use this example because Rutembana is my brother. He won't be annoyed. Let me use him as an example. He believes he's a deist and he believes that there is God. He died for us. He has prepared eternal life for us. That is it. But in this world where we are, the guy is absent and is not involved. So I argued with him on many Zooms here. We argued and argued for hours and argued. So one day I told him, we have argued about this thing for many times. But I pray that God demonstrates to you that he's involved in this life, in what we're going through. Then he said, well, watch away. He's here. So, so one day again, we're in this Zoom. Normally, Ariong and Rutembana, Jethro not so much, but Ariong and Rutembana are always in these Zoom hours, are always driving, going back home, or actually still in business, right? Especially for Ariong. So one day we are in this Zoom, okay, and we are having a Zoom discussion here, etc., etc. So it was a time for Rutembana to present. So he started presenting. He presented. Then midway there, we lost him. We couldn't hear him, but we could still hear noise. And Rutembana, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Then eventually came back and told us, well, there's a goon here who had snatched my phone. So a goon actually had snatched his phone. So a thief ran away with his phone. But as he ran away with his phone was in loudspeaker. So the thief kept hearing these God things that you see, God did this, God can do this, God can whatever. I don't know what we are talking about, but anyway, we are always here talking about God. So this thief brings back the phone to Rutembana and tells him, kwata muli mukuuliza bya Katonda, kwata essimu yo. So he returned the phone. So I told the brother, now do you believe that God is involved? He said, no way he's involved. He still refused. Up to today, Rutembana has refused that God is not involved. Anyway, my point was, in giving you that testimony, my point was that there is that kairos of every individual. There is that fullness of time where you believe certain things that you will never believe, regardless of the evidence that's given to you. There's that event. There's that time. And that time only God knows when you believe. So that is the fullness of time. May God bless you. I hope I simplified the complex language of Tangazo and Professor Serubide.
Isaiah.
Yes.
Oh, that first guy is from that background of thinking that God is watching, you cannot steal from him, he's going to curse you. So when he heard the people talk about Bible verses and all that, he feared and brought back the phone. But had it been stolen by a Muhammad, he was going to take the phone and nothing was going to happen. So really, there is no involvement.
You people, you switch on your microphones and help me. Don't leave me.
Tewali kye tukuyamba oyo omusajja just alowooza abachwezi be bakola ajja kukakana. So you're trying to give an excuse for a person who you don't even know how they were thinking. You're just assuming that
they don't even know that. He doesn't even know his name.
No,
why do you prefer that?
It's actually wrong to say that God is the one who caused that phone to come back. Yet there are some people that have lost their lives because of phones, and he has not rescued them.
It's okay.
There are some people that have died because
our brother is trying to defend God.
Steal a phone from them.
It's okay.
Hey, so if you say that God brought back my phone, and then he fails to save a young girl's life who dies because they are taking a phone, then that is a very unfair God.
Yeah, but if you're using a wrong example. It's as if you're saying that when people die, God is not at work. Okay. We are not saying that when you get back your phone, God is at work, or therefore that shows that God is mighty. No, it's one of those things that God does. That's not the only thing that shows that God works. Let me tell you, I've been robbed of phones twice. Phone snatching twice. And I have tried to follow up and I've failed. But then one time I was also robbed of a laptop from my home. Someone came and picked it from my home. N'atwaliramu Bible yange. Nga mulimu laptop bag yange ebera mu Bible ne notebook yange n'ebintu ebirala. He just picked everything and ran and hid. Then I think it could be said when I was practicing engineering and architecture, and I was the critical projects z'abantu nyingi sebo. In fact, I was going to make a presentation the following day. The guy takes the laptop, and I'm not backed up anywhere. Okay? Na ye bamukwata nga agibetadde mu kikutiya, laptop bag agitadde mu kikutiya, akukuta nayo bamubuuza otwala ki ekyo, balowooza atwala mmundu. Okitegeera, bamuyoola, baali tebamwesiga, baali suspicious of him. And in the end, they get the bag, they open it, they find a laptop, tafaanana kuba na laptop. Of course, webeera yo lwaki ogiteeka mu kikutiya okukuta nayo. Bagenda okukebera mu laptop bag mulimu Bible yange. Bible yange erimu ennamba 2 ez'essimu n'erinnya lyange. Ne bakuba essimu ne bampita kwerosi, ne nfuna baaga yange ne laptop yange na buli kimu. Client gwe nali nkubidde ne mugamba nfunye ebizibu sisobola kupresentinga, ne mukubira ne mugamba mpaamu eddakiika nga 3 oba essaawa namba, I can come and present. And so in one instance, God, obviously I cannot say he wasn't involved. There is his sovereign arm involved. In another instance, yes, he allowed things to happen. So does that mean he doesn't exist or is not involved? No, he is. He is also involved in letting things happen. When he doesn't stop things from happening, doesn't mean he's not involved in letting things happen. So we call it allowing. It's called allowing things to happen. Okay, it's not that he's not involved.
Reverend, actually the technical term is permissive sovereignty.
Permissive sovereignty. Ate wagambe gwe tokosa bigambo binene. Ojjukira ssebo ng'ogamba ssebo nti gw'ogonzaamu ebyaffe wano.
Era kati kyokola nti abantu bakitegedde nkiguzizza, allowing kibadde kigambo kinene nnyo.
God, he has that permissive sovereignty. He permits not because he cannot stop it, but because even in permitting it, it does not overrun. It does not transcend his sovereignty. And by the way, your verse Isaiah Joko Romans 8:28. One of my best guys the key word in all these things Jacob God is all. The key word in that verse is all. And agamba ebiseera ebisinga ffe twerabira nti agambye all. Agamba all things. All. Kati gwe olwokubanga oyagala only good things to work for your favor. No. All things, even the ones you perceive to be not
Thank
good.
You, Thank you, Reverend. Now, I am a student of philosophy, and one of its courses is logic. And I know Rutembana loves and likes logic. Let us apply logic a little bit. If the guy feared God, at what point did he fear God? Because the same God is against stealing. So he did not fear God not to steal. There he defied God and stole. But after stealing, he feared God and returned it, what he had stolen. So how many thieves actually fear God that way? They fail to fear him at the first stage of stealing, and they fear him after they have what they have stolen, and now they have to return him. Let's apply that logic a little bit. Okay? So, why doesn't he just throw away the phone into the car? Why does he even have to confess and tell you, So is this a thief from heaven who is stealing from non-believers? Or is this a thief from the church? Are there thieves that are born again? To whom is not a sin to steal from non-believers, but it is a sin to steal from believers. I mean, let's place this whole thing into logic, and you see. We can fight the existence of God. We can even fight the involvement of God. But we are fighting failing battles. And for me, I thank God, because before that incident happened, I was prophetic on the life of this brother, and I told him, one day God will show you that he's involved. But you see, here is the whole thing. The responsibility of God is to reveal himself to us. What is not his responsibility is us believing that utmost revelation of himself. You cannot tell me, dear, my brothers and sisters who are here, that you've been arguing that God is not involved. And then he demonstrates that using the worst of all characters, the culprit, a thief. Okay? And then a thief comes and confesses and says, no, he's not involved. Then later you argue and say, but okay, he returned my phone. Why are children dying? Can we first of all accept that he has been involved at this point? Then we go to the death of a child and also investigate his absence in the death of that child, because that is also very important. That is why actually I was actually insisting on the whole thing of Romans chapter 8. All things, okay, are under the fullness of time. So we Christians, we Christian believers, are not fatal believers. We don't believe in fate. We investigate, how was God involved in this death? How was he involved in this life? Because either way, God is involved. And we can still see the purpose and the will of God manifesting and superior, and actually serving a greater purpose than this. This is not some kind of canceling ourselves. No, this is trying to perceive life at an advanced level, rather than living like animals, gentlemen and ladies. But anyway, for me, I'm a free man. I asked God to show this brother that he's involved, and he did. Believing that he's not in charge of my God, he's in charge of the brother. Okay, so we had a question of Serubide. Brother Muyanja, you're welcome. And Serubide's question was, are there universal reasons why people do whatever they do, and why they don't whatever they don't? And what we mean by those universal reasons is that reasons that can even be shared by others who are not doing what others are not doing, and who are doing what others are doing. Jethro Musoke, you have been here for a while. So turn your radio into a TV. Jet, are you there? Okay, so he's actually not here. It is his name and photo that is here. All right. Okay, who else was here? Arion, can you hear us? Do you want to say something? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Yes.
that is safe. That is now safe. That is safe. Okay. Gracious, do you want to tell us why people do what they do? Yes, my Marion, how are you, dear? Marion, are you okay? Okay.
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Okay, Gracious, you want to go?
Yes, good evening to you all, brothers and sisters. So I'm not saying much. I think people do what they do in accordance with what they have in terms of knowledge and experiences in life. But the main issue is, I think, knowledge and absolutely wisdom. Wisdom, which I can call a gift, and then knowledge has to be collected. Yeah, so basically I would think that way. And maybe the other thing could be about their background, but still it would come back to knowledge and wisdom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Gracious. I think people do what they do because of culture and norms. Okay. Okay. That's from Marion. Okay. Mr. Miyanja, you want to come in?
Okay. Yeah, I
Mm.
think you're really spot on. I think it's like 4 ways. I'll just be brief, highlight them. You talked of history and culture. This is a big deal, and it can swing you either way. Because of your upbringing, you'll do things based on how you were wired to do them because of your culture, your upbringing. Now, if the upbringing was hostile, I think I've shared this before. If it was hostile in a certain way, you may tend to do the opposite. As I gave a very quick example of if you grew up and your parent was beating you all the time for reason or no reason, as you may choose not to beat your kids or to discipline them in another way because your upbringing taught you a lesson in the opposite. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying. Whereas it doesn't mean that if you are brought up being beaten, you're also going to beat your kids. So the history can swing you either way. But most of the time it will swing you in the default of what that history was. Okay. This other changing to the opposite way is valuable, okay? But it is also influential. So history takes the lead, experience. Now, even if your history was in a certain way, but as you grow up, as you interact with other beings, as you interact with other people in other cultures, they may influence you to do things a certain way, okay? So that's where the experience and the exposure, which may be different from your history. And so that is important on who you get exposed to, what you learn, what you unlearn, and all that. Now, sometimes we do, the danger of doing the things based on our history is because if we did not understand the why, we are likely to default in that history and do the wrong thing or do things in a way that is dangerous to us because we do not know any other way. An example a woman I was listening to gave was that when she was growing up, wherever her mom was preparing, was it turkey? Yeah, it was turkey. When they would buy turkey or chicken, I don't remember one of the two, they would always cut off, how do you call it? Or single, the neck. You understand that part of the chicken, or yeah. So they would always cut that off and some section of the legs, okay, when they were going to cook. So she grew up seeing that, and so when she was married, she was doing the same. Whenever they would buy turkey, she would cut off that bit and the lower section and cook. Then one of her aunties or one of the relatives of her, sorry, on the husband's side, asked her, why do you have to cut off that? And she said, no, this is how I grew up. I grew up seeing how it was. This is how the turkey was being prepared. And so she said, who told you? This is what my mom used to do. So she calls the mom and asked, but mom, these people are telling me I shouldn't cut this off. Why did you used to cut off this part and this part? The mom told her, oh, I used to cut off those parts because my saucepan was small, So for me to fit in that turkey or that chicken, I had to cut off to forego those parts, and then the turkey would fit into my saucepan because I didn't have an alternative. So you see how this lady was practicing something she saw for a long time, But she did not know the reason why it was being done, and yet it was not applicable. In her time, she had enough money to buy bigger saucepans, so the whole thing would fit in. So that's the danger of, not questioning our history, not understanding the why behind our history, and that influences what we do or what we don't do. And lastly, we can learn from scratch. You may grow up what we call naive. You've heard of the people saying, I was naive, I didn't know. The Bible says, my people perish due to lack of what? Due to lack of knowledge. Okay. Now, when you know something, now that you know, it can influence you to do better. Now, knowledge doesn't mean that you're going to do the same. I gave you an example of the guy who used to lecture, I don't think I gave it here, but there's a lecturer who used to, I think I did it here last week. The lecturer who used to give us it was called histopathology lecture. And he would remove a lung from a guy who died out of smoking, and it was dark. It had all these things, and he would explain to us the poor habits of smoking, how they destroy your lung. But within 15 minutes, the lecturer would take a break to go and smoke. Okay. So he knew the dangers of smoking, but he was doing it anyway. So knowing something doesn't mean that you're going to act on it. Okay. So it's only those who know that they will decide to say, okay, now I know smoking is bad. Let me stop smoking. And you act on that knowledge. So it influences what you do. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Actually, the idea of people do what they do because of cultures and norms was from Marion. And I think you have actually also captured that as one of your 4 points. That's very interesting. All right. Jethro, can you hear us? Are you back? Okay. And Ariong? I don't know if these brothers of mine are alive. All right. Okay. Any other person who wants to come in? Why do people do what they do? And why don't they do what they don't? Okay. Sharif Mwangs, you're welcome. Thank you for keeping time. Okay. Any other person who wants to come in? Okay. Taiwan, do you want to say something?
I think that question is actually very good. It goes back to critical pure reason. I think it was by Immanuel Kant, who made a blanket statement that there's nothing that you do that is moral, that is not out of duty. In a way, I think Immanuel Kant kind of brought it out from the part in the Bible where Jesus says that do unto others what you'd want them do unto you. So it is very important to have a universal law that determines what is right and what is wrong. Doing something out of compassion is not morally right. You have to do it because it is what you are supposed to do. That's why taxes are not based on your opinion or how you feel about the government. It is a duty. Everyone has to pay the taxes. So why do people do what they do? They brought in the issue of knowledge, but it is also duty. You are going to go to work and suffer through whatever the bosses tell you, or do illegal stuff because you have a moral duty to your family. You have to feed your children, things like that. So people do things they do because of the duty that they feel they owe. The person who brought back the phone of Ruta Venganya, something like that, in the previous example you were giving us, it was because he felt cautioned by God. He had that experience, like he felt God being involved in his life at that point, because they're talking about God and he's stealing phone, is violating God. So he felt like God was responding to the act that he was doing at this point. So it may not prove to your brother that God is involved in his daily life, but it proved to this thief that God is actually involved. So it was not an example to use towards your brother, but an example to use towards that thief in particular. So duty is what determines what we are going to do. Sometimes you find it as a duty to yourself. You want to feel healthy, so you do something. I think that's my submission for now.
Thank you very much, Taiwan. And you had kept quiet, and yet you have been so helpful for this discussion. So you've given us another reason. People do what they do because they are duty-oriented and duty-bound. That is why they do what they do. For example, in the video that the person who asked the question referenced, there is a woman who says that I hated short people, but I ended up marrying a short man. But before I married this man, I had to call my friend. So she had a duty, a social duty to call a friend to come and approve whether this man is the right height. And then the friend told her that, yeah, this height can work. So that's when she accepted, and now they are married. So that's why Professor Widow was asking, but why do we do what we do, and why don't we do what we do? So you tell us that we are duty bound. That is the Kantian theory of are they called deontology ethics? The ethics of deontology. Okay.
Yes,
Duty.
yes.
Yes. So we are duty bound. We do what we do because of duty. Okay. Marion is saying that also political factors influence us, e.g., while abiding to the laws. Different countries have different laws. So are we law-abiding citizens, or we are punishment-abiding citizens? Has anyone understood my question?
Yeah, it is actually a very good one. But like I said before, do unto others what you want them do unto you. It is power that actually rules, if you look at it in that way. If I can do whatever I want and nobody can do anything to me, I'm going to cross every moral law there is. I'm not going to abide by anything that anybody else says. But if I know there are people who can keep me in check, then I'm going to abide by the law. So we are punishment driven. Thank you.
Unfortunately, but you see again, Taiwan, you kept on referencing that wisdom of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Do unto others what you wish, what you would wish them do unto you. Aren't there dangerous things there? Because if I want to be killed, should I go and kill? So should I do unto others so that my goal can be achieved?
That's why there is such a thing called suicide by cop. It is back in the day. I think it was during the Spanish Inquisition, where people would decide to kill babies, so that they are killed for killing the baby instead of committing suicide by themselves, because suicide was also considered a crime. If you attempted and you failed, they would beat you, and the torture was worse than death itself. So what people would do is they would kill an innocent child, such that they are now killed by somebody. You get, and they don't end up in hell for killing themselves. It was something in that direction. Yeah. So
exactly. Thank you so much. Because I wanted us here at ITIS to always use all our faculties, our heart, our head, and our hands, so that we understand these things properly. Sharif says that we are more of punishment bound, not law. There are people we would kill, but because it is against the law, we don't. Okay. So if we are punishment bound, then we are not law-abiding citizens. It is wrong to assume that someone is law-abiding because they have not violated the law. Yet their eyes and their intentions are on what on the outcome, and not that. So some of us are not adulterous because of HIV and because we want to save our families. But if our health was secured and our family is secured, we would be sleeping around with anyone that we want. So in other words, the law of thou shalt not commit adultery, or thou shalt not fornicate, does not even hold. It only holds because of because of the outcome, not of what it is. So I think it is important for us here at ITIS to establish the right reasons of why we do what we do. Okay? And then
I'd like to interject a bit. Can I add something? I recently asked somebody that if you found out right now that Jesus is not that way, if you continue worshiping Jesus or God, you are going to hell. Jesus is not that way. What will become of your love? Has your love been for Jesus' sake or for your own self?
Exactly. Professor Serwide, is that where you want to come in?
Taiwan.
Taiwan is like his name, Taiwan. You see, Taiwan is against a superpower, and it has it has rebelled against China, and it is now actually competing China in making chips. So when you hear the name Taiwan, then you know that you are face to face with a very rebellious brain. Anyway, please continue.
I'm still thinking about Juana, if you told me today that if you found a way to convince me that Christ is not the way, the only way.
But you see, Professor Serwide, my question to you is it the way that matters or Christ being the way that matters? Let me go to Tangazo as you're thinking. Yes, Reverend. Reverend, your hand is up. This brother is still thinking.
It's okay. I think one of the reasons is captured within what has been said, but I wanted to say that we are transactional. So by that, we are transactional beings. By that, tubala. Tubala katinga bugambye, when you talk about duty, moral, and fear. Duty, morality, and fear. Are we duty bound? Are we morally bound? Are we deterred by fear? Tovola nti bakola amakomera okulaba nti wajja kubeerayo abamu ku ffe nga tuli balumira mwoyo ekijja kijje. Okitegeeraga ekijja kijje. Abalala bajja kutya. Abalala bajja kukola kubanga kikituufu okukola. Ne bw'oyogera ku misolo, ayogedde ku misolo oyo n'agamba emisolo tegidependinga ku convenience na logic waffe. But the people who pay taxes because they fear of what will come. The people who avoid taxes na beebuuza sina wenfuniramu. I pay taxes tewali kyenfunamu. So there are people who refuse to pay them. So ideally we are transactional. Era n'abalala abamu abalokoka kubanga baagala kugenda buggulu bafuniramu.
Reverend, Sharif is asking you, in the context of transactional, is it okay to marry because society wants you to marry and actually marry the specific type of person and have the specific type of marriage that society wants you to marry? Is it right?
So the benefit in that transaction is that you gain acceptance. If you conclude that if you marry, the society will accept you, or you gain status in society, then the benefit of that transaction is that you will get that respect or acceptance that you imagine or you have believed or they have made you to believe is attached to marriage. So at the end of the day, you marry because there is that benefit.
Is that communal transaction always right or always wrong?
No, it can be wrong. It can be wrong. It could be right. Oyinza okuba ng'oli mwenzi totereera ozungirako n'omuwala ozindi bagamba nekyali badde kirungi omusajja n'awasa n'afuna omukyala n'atereera ewaka okitegeera ne bawummulako okitegeera. Oyinza okuba nga tolina busobozi kukola bintu ebimu. You are unable to do certain duties like home duties like okutereeza ewaka bulungi nga just it's a symptom of just consequence of being obuwuulu oba symptom of y'obuwuulunensi. Kakati kisoboka nga kisoboka. I'm not saying that is grounds, but it could be, okay, it could be the other stereotypical thing where people think that at some age you're supposed to get married. Now, it depends on you. Do you believe in the transaction? Do I believe that when I go to the shop and I pay 5,000 shillings and they give me a kilo of sugar, that sugar will help when I put it in my tea, it will be sweetened? And if I believe that, then I will boldly go to the shop and pay the 5,000 and get the sugar. Leave the money there, get the sugar. If you believe that it is valuable in your society for you to get married because people will respect you, people will accept you, you will begin to attend, if you believe in that benefit, then you are bound, you are likely to make certain decisions, to do certain things. If you don't believe in that nonsense, you're also likely not to set a mumanyira and you refuse to do it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have 8 minutes to go. Are they 8? They are actually 6. We have 6 minutes to go. I want your parting shots. Professor Serwide, how do you feel about your question so far? We normally start with the owner of the question.
I maybe my follow-up question probably that would handle some other day. What makes one factor much more predominant than the other? That yes, people do what they do because of their social cultural influence. Yes,
they have given you the reasons: transaction, culture, and norms. And then copycatting, like Mr. Muyanja gave. So my mother cooked like this. That's why I cook like this. Why? The dominant factor is my mother. Those are the reasons we are giving you, Professor Serwide.
Yeah. My point is, at a certain point, despite the fact that we have such several factors, which are really significant factors, why would, for example, at a certain point, faith in Christ or faith in the God that I've relied on will uproot all others, or my desire would uproot all the others, or sense of duty would lead me to violate another equally important factor? Probably that would be for another day. What leads to that?
Bob Muyanja wants to say something in these few minutes. Yes, Bob. Bob, your hand was up. Tangazo, put down your old hand.
Yes. Yeah. So, I wanted to come in at Peter's last question or submission of what would be what we call the tip over. Okay. Into the other one.
Nti kino factors ezino otya okulwala sirimu ne kiki ekikususa ng'otegeredde ddala nti omukazi ono mulwadde, omuntu omugezi bw'aba alemereddwa yandiyambadde akapiira noga nedda okufa
leka omukulu akuddemu ssebo, leka omukulu akuddemu.
Okay, so this is my submission is also answering the other issue of if someone came up and said Jesus is not the way, so it will also help answer that. I think the tip over is going to be more of personal experience and reality. Now, this is what I mean. A lot of times we don't even know what we believe. We don't understand it. Let's say Christ. Do we really know who Christ is and what his teaching was? And are we ready to follow that teaching? The person who tells you that pray for your enemies and love your enemies and pray for them, when they cut his ear, he picks it and puts it back. When they cut the enemy's ear, he picks it and puts it back on the guy's ear. So if you follow such a person's teaching, it means that your enemies are gonna they're gonna turn back and love you instead. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to say that the guy Christ, if you have an experience of moving and obeying Christ and following his footsteps, and you have that personal experience and touch, no one is going to come and tell you there's another. Okay. Now, in our life experiences, if you have even if someone told you ABC, but in your heart of hearts, you know that this is what has worked for me and I believe in it. Okay, you are not likely to change. So you're likely to follow that which is working for you. unless someone can convince you otherwise. In science, we say we want data, that we want results, we want proof, okay? But people are doing things without, someone tells you that they will pray for you and you get healed. Man, the guy has not seen anyone they know who was crippled, and they were seeing them every day crippled, and they were prayed for and they stood. All they are seeing is people who come to conferences and they say, I was lame, but now I'm walking. So there is no personal, reality check. So for me, to answer your question, what is going to help us tip over is that personal experience, that personal touch, that personal proof of concepts that can lay off. And we can only do that if we actually understand what we believe in. I don't know that.
Thank you. Parting
Zumba.
shots. Yes, Sebo.
Zumba, katono nyawo wennyini, katono nyo bansaasire.
Wennyini yawo.
Sebo, twali eyo bwe nali bwayise experiences bbiri. Namala mu Seventh Day emyaka 3 nga siri mu Seventh Day wabula nga mbukola. So saagala kubazaayo olunaku balituwa tuli byogera. Gwa Isaiah n'ojja ku Saturday n'obuulira eddakiika 4 obikkudde Luka essuula ya 19 n'osoma ennyiriri 10 ne weesiba ku lunyiriri olw'e10. Emyaka 3 ne gayiika 3 nga ekyamboga ebigezo ebimu saabikola ku sabbiiti ngende mu ggulu. Abawala nga mbeewaze era nali nkyabeewala kumala emyaka 28. Kimu eky'ekumi nga nfubye buli kimu n'obuulira eddakiika 40. In that very instance, waliwo bannaffe twali tuli nabo ebwayise nze n'ebbire nga tubabuulidde obu Seventh Day emyaka ndowooza nga 10 plus. Twabayitanga ne kuzze twayitanga sabbiiti z'abagenyi. Abayaaye ne baguba. Twayogera ku Yesu nga tutudde mu dduuka lya bbire eddakiika sijjukira oba zaawera 15. Ne baatula Kristo, ne bakkiriza Kristo. As I count today, emyaka gigenda wera 10, by the way gyawera. Abasajja n'abakazi be twabulira Kristo bali abanywedde banywevu. Kiki ekyo eddakiika 10 zaako?
Lwaki tugamba nti amaanyi agalokola, kubanga enjiri ge maanyi ga Katonda agalokola. Amaanyi lwaki tetusoma kyawandiikibwa ekyo ne musula bulungi?
Nsumba genda maaso.
Ekyandikwa kigamba nti kubanga enjiri ge maanyi ga Katonda okulokola eri buli akkiriza. Balumi essuula 1 olunyiriri lwa 9. Ekigambo kyonna kigamba dynamite. Dynamite kitegeeza kubwatuka, ebwatuka. Lwaki tetugamba nti ebintu biri byonna bye mwayitamu ne bali abayaye bamwe abaali baaguba nammwe mwali mwagubira mu Seventh Day, dynamite n'ebaabya ne mukkiriza. Amwaffe yeebazibwe musule bulungi
Dynamite bannange maama nze.
Sharif, we shall come back next time. Ali, God bless you. We love you so much. Thank you, True Tangazo. Thank you, everyone who was here. Thank you, my Marion. Thank you, Ivan Taiwan. Thank you, the American Muyanja. Ariong, we didn't hear from you, and Jethro, we hope you're all right. We'll give you a call. God bless you. Bye.